So my question to you is, looking at just the way that we're watching playoff basketball right now, how many years away do you think the Detroit Pistons are being a top 6 seed? I'm not talking to like playing 9-10 seed. I'm talking about like a top 6 seed where they don't have to play in a play-in tournament.
Whew, that is a very good question. I'm not trying to stall here, but if people are not going to like my answer, but it's the truth. I think we are first off, we're going to get into this later, but I think it all depends on what's really about to happen with this power struggle, this dynamic in the front office. So that's right there. But if I just let's just say things were the status quo, I mean, we're talking about maybe 4 years, 3-4 years before I believe they were a top 6 team. I mean, you have to really look at what is going on with the Pistons. They have not won 25 games, I believe, since Dwayne Casey's first season when they went 41-41. That was the last time they won 25 games in a season.
Yeah,
they have not won, and they haven't won 25 games over the past 4. It's 82 games in the NBA season. The Pistons have won like 74 over the past 4 seasons. I don't see how you can look at this roster, this organization right now, and say, hey, we make this move, we're right back. This is going to be an ugly process. I think if they get the right front office in there, they make a couple of trades. Hopefully for the Pistons, if some teams decide to break up their payrolls in the offseason, who knows? Maybe they might be able to flip some of their guys for, some guys departing on those other teams. All hypothetical. But, I mean, right now, just looking at it, I would have to say about maybe 3 or 4 years. I would lean more towards the 3 because I think if you're talking about 4 years and you have like a whole new regime, you're starting to ask some questions. Okay, like what are we really doing as an organization?
I saw that tweet from Ant, right? So shout out to him because he was watching playoff basketball much like us, and he was just saying like, man, the Pistons are so far behind of the curve of playoff basketball. And I said 3 years, and I know some people are a little bit more optimistic. We have people in the chat saying 2 years. I think if it's a 2-year window, you're probably saying goodbye to a lot of the young core pieces that the Pistons fans like. Because at the end of the day, it's really hard to win with 20-year-olds in this league. I mean, the Oklahoma City Thunder are just an anomaly, and SGA, in my opinion, is probably going to win MVP this year.
Should win MVP.
He should. That's my MVP. I mean, being that young, number 1 seed, like OKC has an incredibly bright future, but I think it's going to be 3 years personally. I think this summer will tell me what the plan is, because the past 4 years, it kind of seemed like they didn't have a plan. It was just stockpiling top 5 picks and putting together rosters that would get you a top 5 pick. But, the organization is they never really have told Pistons fans or media what the long-term plan is. It's just like, it's a restoration, right? Like you never really got a cut and dry answer. But for me, I think it's 3 years, 4 years. I think some Pistons fans would be absolutely irate. 2028, and they started rebuilding in 2020. Like, I don't know, man. Like, they should be competing, because you look at teams like Orlando, you look at the younger teams. I mean, they turned it around pretty quickly. But you also have to remember they had some assets to, fast track the rebuild, where the Pistons had to start from, ground zero from scratch. Not making excuses. That's just kind of what happened. But I think 3 years for me. 3 years for me, I think, is where I could see this team possibly being a top 6 seed. You got to hit draft picks, and you have to make smart free agency decisions.
And I think the thing is, it could be 2 years. It really depends on what's going to happen with this hire for the president of basketball ops and what's going to happen with the future of Troy Weaver. I'm not trying to rag on Troy Weaver, but if you go off of let's just set aside the draft picks for a second, because I mean, outside of Killian Hayes, I believe that Troy Weaver has been a solid drafter. But when you talk about his free agency moves and his trade moves, they have been very underwhelming. They have, I would say, probably the best move he's made via trade for the past couple of years was the most recent one when he landed Fontecchio from the Jazz. I think that is a guy that, I don't know if he's going to be a long-term starter, but I think that is a guy that could be a definite piece off the bench moving forward. If they can improve at that wing position, go ahead. I think Fontecchio was a really great land for him, but outside of that, nah. It's been a lot of former lottery picks that did not pan out elsewhere. You're trying to make it a reclamation project. Well, here's the thing. Are you trying to restore former lottery picks, or are you trying to restore the Pistons?
Oh, and man, that's a bar. I love that.
I mean, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, are we trying to restore the Pistons or restore former lottery picks? And it seems like he's been trying to restore more former lottery picks as opposed to the Pistons, because you're bringing in guys that did not work out elsewhere. Marvin Bagley didn't work out. Kevin Knox didn't work out. James Wiseman, I'm going to say he didn't work out, but I will say this. We've seen better of James Wiseman over the back end of the season from the work that he's been doing with Mark Bryant. I've seen it every day after practice. If you like the guy or not, James Wiseman is actually putting in that work. So I'm not going to go too hard on him on that in that context. But what about RJ Hampton? Didn't work out. It's just bringing in guys that were names when they came out, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Dennis Smith Jr. I forgot about that one. I mean,
Dennis Smith Jr. Yeah, another one.
Even though Dennis Smith Jr. actually locked down like defensively. Over the last 2 seasons, he's been a better defender. I will give him that credit. But to your point, yeah, I mean, you look at the Josh Jacksons, the Dennis Smith Jr.'s, like all the former high lottery picks, but none of them have really like panned out. Like I think Chauncey Billups, if you look at the Pistons history, he's kind of the anomaly, but you have to consider who the head coach was at that time. And Larry Brown, in my opinion, is one of the best NBA coaches of all time. And I think Chauncey just had a really good teacher of the game to teach him how to play that point guard position. And I wasn't like too mad. Yeah, I wasn't too mad with the projects that Troy tried to bring on. Like, you're rebuilding franchise, I get it, but none of them really panned out. It seemed like every year we were trying to take on projects like outside of this deadline. We didn't really like take on a quote unquote project. I wouldn't really count like Troy Brown Jr. as a project or anything like that.
Yeah,
but, this was the first off.
The latest trade deadline, I think that was more so of, look, we just got to do something. And what they did was they brought in some new energy. Didn't really translate to a whole bunch of wins, but you saw them play marginally better. But I mean, even outside of the reclamation projects, this is out of Troy's mouth, so I'm not making anything up. The fact that he admitted they had better trades before for Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks, and they didn't pull the trigger on them until recently, that's a red flag. The fact that Killian Hayes started this season over Jaden Ivey and wasn't even released or removed, that's a red flag, because you've seen 3 years of this guy. And he's shooting sub 30% from beyond the arc and almost sub 30 from the field. What more do you need to see? So he's some of those moves. Again, not saying whether the guy needs to go or not. I'm just saying some of the moves, they didn't go according to whatever his plan. Like you said, the plan wasn't public other than restoring the Pistons, but the actual direction of where he wanted to go, it could not have been going 4 straight years of the worst stretch of Pistons basketball in franchise history.
Yeah, I mean, I went in the 97-1 archives. I know it's completely off topic, but you guys can go pull it up. When Stan Van Gundy was arguing with Mike Valenti about tanking, and kind of Stan basically said, he's like, it's easy to go out and get guys that can get you 20 wins a year. Like, he's like, anyone can do that. It's not hard. anyone can lose games on purpose. Anyone can tank. It's not like a mastermind strategy. Like he's like all the coaches in the NBA, we know how to win games. It's like if we didn't, we wouldn't be coaching in the NBA. So I found that really interesting, and Stan was kind of right in a sense. 76ers haven't been to an NBA Finals or even a conference finals yet. So it's kind of funny if you listen to 97 won the ticket now. Mike Filani's anti-tank, but like 6 years ago he was pro-tank. It's kind of funny how like everyone is switched up in the city lately.
I'm not gonna say. Here's what I'll say about Valenti. I call Valenti a wave rider. To me, he rides whatever wave is going to go for his constituents. I mean, it's because this is the same guy. We're talking Pistons, but this is the same guy that wanted Jared Goff out of town. Now it's we've never said a bad word about Jared Goff. So wave rider. So.
Yeah, I mean, some people pulled up the receipts of him and his co-host saying that they wanted him out, but it's kind of funny.